Good morning, everyone. Welcome along to the Intelligent Money British GT Championship, the start of a new season, the 2022 Championship, the 30th season of competition for this championship here in the UK, and the 15-minute morning warm-up session coming up very shortly. The cars lined up in the pit lane. The sun is sort of shining, a little bit overcast, but for the time being, it's certainly a more pleasant Bank Holiday Monday than we've enjoyed in certain years past here in Oulton Park. Andy McEwen here in the commentary box. David Addison alongside me. David, one of the real highlights of my racing calendar, this, and the same for you, I know.
Oulton Park is a fantastic circuit, Andy, and a grid of GT3 cars around here just looks absolutely awesome because they're big, brutal machines. It's a real driver's circuit. It is one of the most picturesque venues the championship will go to all season. And you add to that the fact that it's the season kickoff, and so the first race doesn't have any of the pit stop penalties. It's a completely level playing field. New tyre, new cars, new driver combinations, one or two new teams. There's a lot to look forward to. Can't wait.
Could not agree more. We've got a big grid as well. We've got getting on for 30 cars racing here this weekend, including about 17 GT3s and lots of potential race winners. We're not the only member of the team here this weekend because, as ever, roaming down in the pit lane is Bryn Lucas. Bryn, good morning.
Good morning, Andy. Do you know, it is a glorious morning, and I'm here with Nick Burrows, the MD of Intelligent Money, the main sponsor of the British GT. Now, Nick, it's great to see you here. It's great to see such a huge array of cars behind, but I understand that Intelligent Money is celebrating a bit of an anniversary.
Yeah, 20 years this year, so it's great for us to be celebrating 20 years here with the SRO guys, where they're celebrating their 30 years. So 30 years and 20 years between us is great.
And you're taking sponsorship through to 2025, so another 3 years, including this season, which is fantastic. Why do you have such a big involvement in the British GT?
When we first came along, we wanted to be involved in something rather than just sponsoring something, and it definitely feels that way. So it's been great to be involved in that kind of growth in the periods we've come through. And it's just an exciting place to be. So clients love coming down, love the atmosphere, love the environment, love the noise. So it's good to be back and just feeling the noise in the pits and the energy and the adrenaline around. And everyone enjoys being part of that. So it's something we want to remain part of. So it's great.
And of course, in this, I say, post-COVID, in big inverted commas, post-COVID world we're in, fans are able to get back and be alongside the cars as well.
Yeah, which is great. And, you know, we run the hospitality for our clients as well, and it's great to see. Well, at these events, I think we were surprised when we saw how up close and personal fans can get in pit lanes with pit walks, and it's great to see that back with the meet the drivers. So, yeah, awesome. So really looking forward to the season.
So am I. Well, 3 more years, and it's an exciting time ahead of this 2022 season. Any ideas on who might win, or are you just impartial?
Main sponsors, of course, we're impartial. We can't pick any favourites. We need to make sure we look after everyone the same, so we'll continue to do that.
Nick, thank you.
You're welcome.
I think I'm going to use that excuse because I can't pick any winners either, David. It really is, again, not just a big field, but a very competitive one as well. A lot is made often of grid numbers and the amount of cars that are out there, but that doesn't really matter unless you've got lots of them that can win, and we have.
Every year we seem to go through a stage where the media are trying to almost kill off GT3. Oh, grids are dwindling a bit. What happens next year? Will it be GT4 only? We've got 17 GT3 cars. 1 or 2 are guests, admittedly, and won't do a full season. But the only way to work out who's going to win that is to take a pin and an entry list and insert Part A into Part B, because it is absolutely wide open. There are 1 or 2 that are struggling a little bit, not just on the BOP, but on this new Pirelli tyre that we'll address a little bit more during the day. But it's a really high-quality lineup. And the fact that for one race you've got on pole position, for example, Mercedes factory driver Jules Gounon from GT World Challenge Europe and IGTC and rather illustrates the level at which the championship now operates. You know, you've got Darren Turner as a Le Mans class winner, nestling away on pole position in GT4. It's a mega entry. New cars, new teams, including the Porsche 718 Cayman GT4 Club Sport. Beautiful looking car, the Cayman. And there are a good number of them in the GT4 category, which again is good that there is the variety, because you've got BMW, you've got Porsche, you've got Ginetta, you've got Toyota, you've got Aston Martin, on and on it goes.
Yeah, absolutely. There are lots of McLarens and Mercedes in GT3, but even there we saw good pace out of the likes of the Porsches, for example, the Lamborghinis yesterday, and the Balf Motorsport Audi. It's actually Audi that will be on pole position for the first 60-minute race coming up later on today. Sean Balf putting in a really good effort in the first GT3 session. He will line up on pole for race 1, and it will be this man on pole for the second race. As David says, Jules Gounon giving us a wave there inside the car. and great to have him on board that Ram Racing car, which I think has to start as one of the tentative pre-season favourites, because Ian Logie and Ram Racing, they've come close the last couple of years, haven't they?
Yeah, I mean, this is all, if you like, for an Ian Logie championship ability to win the championship, because Jules Gounon won't be able to do every race. I think Callum McLeod's going to sub for him. So, therefore, of course, the co-driver can't score the same number of points. It rather illustrates the level at which Ian Logie wants to win this championship. As you say, he's come so close in the past. Jules Gounon has never raced here before. I think I'm pretty much assured in saying his father never raced here, because I can't remember sitting on the bank as a small boy watching his dad in junior single-seater, so it's a bit of a step into the unknown for the Gounon family. And Jules was absolutely buzzing about this place before qualifying. Absolutely loves it. Proper old-school circuit. Couldn't have been more positive. He said it's right up there with the likes of Bathurst and the Nordschleife. Absolutely fantastic. I don't think Jonathan Palmer could have had a better advert for Oulton Park. Just keep replaying what Jules Gounon said. And if anybody in any category, Andy, wimps out and says, oh, Oulton Park's a bit fiddly, a bit tight, play that Gounon interview, because he was absolutely bouncing about the place. Number 32 is another car that's worth watching over the course of the day, over the course of the championship, because the Lamborghinis are always very, very rapid bits of kit. We get used to talking about the Barwell cars, but Redline Racing comes into the championship. Redline has an absolutely mega pedigree in winning races, winning championships in Porsches, and now Simon Leonard and his merry men are coming the Lamborghini route. Now, this is Jules Gounon on board. Assuming he doesn't bail at the end of the lap, it's going to be well worth riding with him, because he wants to dial everything into this car. He was just outstanding in qualifying. I mean, you talked about the lap, and at the end of it, even you went, wow, because the gap over the rest was so big.
Yeah, it was some 4/10 quicker and a new GT3 lap record. Riding on board with him then as he heads through Old Hall Corner, working away at the wheel, and the speed starting to build. Mercedes does look strong here. Of course, Ram Racing actually did win the first race here at the end of last year, towards the end of last year, with the Kevin Say and Tom Onslow Cole one-off entry. We know the car works, and Jules Gounon, we know, is a talented driver, and he's showing us that now.
So relaxed, bit of oversteer, bit of opposite lock to correct it. But here you've got an absolute pro at work. You know, he is part of the Mercedes family. He knows this car inside out. It is a good car for Oulton Park. It's got all of that torque to drag it up the hills. And Jules Gounon then makes his way down towards Britain. You can see him right over the curb, the way everything clatters about. He comes up over hill top now. And Jules Gounon, I suspect, is going to be a big hit in the championship. He's a really personable bloke as well. Says all the right things, and you can understand why not only Mercedes like him, but why Ian Logie has been attracted to him to bring him into the championship in his quest to win it. That was the exit of Knickerbrook, and now the climb up Clay Hill towards Druids, the double apex right. Quite a bit of overnight rain in the area, which means the road was damp at the start of the day. I think it's pretty much dried out now, but the last thing you need in the warm-up session is a bent car.
Yes, 15-minute session here, and not a lot to be gained. Really, most of the time, the teams use this session to practice pit stops, just to check that the car is working. You don't want to be pushing it too hard and risking an accident or mechanical failure, but Jules Gounon, you stick him in the car, and you know he's going to go quickly. 1 minute 35.7, his early lap of the session. Right, from one Mercedes to another, this is the number 4 2Cs Motorsport car, James Cottingham and Lewis Williams. From James, one of the revelations early last year, wasn't he, when he made the shift from historic racing into GT3s, and I'm intrigued to see how he goes this year.
Yeah, it's a shame he didn't do a full season last year, but the family business sponsoring the car, the DK Engineering bright yellow Mercedes, so that gives the impression very definitely that this is a serious bid. Number 4 then, out of the 2Cs stable, which has already won the Gulf 12 Hours, for example, this year, rather than Ram Racing, Dan Shufflebottom's team that we were looking at a moment ago. It is behind the wheel of the car, Lewis Williamson, and he's gone fastest on a 1:35.226. Pole for the opening race is a 34.6 from Sean Balfe in Audi number 22. Now, Sean has yet to really put a time in. He's on the circuit, but he's yet to do very much. As down the pit lane comes the Adam Ballon Sandy Mitchell Lamborghini. This is the sole Barwell car, Sandy bringing it into the pit lane. Of course, Barwell won the championship last year with Dennis Lind and Leo Machitsky, who for the moment at least can't be on track because of the dramas surrounding Russian driver Leo Machitsky and travel, amongst other things. So fingers crossed that everything in that respect resolves itself as the year goes on. But Sandy Mitchell and Adam Ballon drove together last year, so they know what each other is about. They both know the car. Don't rule them out again for good results, although only 12th on the grid for the first race.
Yes, they are. Adam had a bit of an off in testing as well up at Lodge Corner on Friday. Didn't do any damage to the car, but may have knocked his confidence ever so slightly. And they finished third in the championship, did Sandy and Adam last year, looking definitely to improve upon that. And Oulton, a good place for them to do that, because Lamborghini have won 6 of the last 10 GT3 races here at Oulton Park. So we made the point earlier, that car runs well here, and I'd expect them to be a factor before the day is done. Newbridge Motorsport will also be a factor. One of only 3 Pro-Am entries in GT4. New livery on the car, but the same driver lineup that really took GT4 by storm last year.
Can I, at the risk of appearing to be pedantic, now slightly amend your sentence? You're right, there are 3 Pro-Am entries, but 2 will run, because the BMW that's not a BMW and it's an Equus, but it's got a BMW badge on it that was homologated as an Equus M4, we don't have to worry about,
right,
because that's been withdrawn because of brake issues, which is a shame because it reduces the Pro-Am element of GT4. In a sense, though, it makes life simpler for us because it means the bulk are now silvers, and we've got less concern over trying to split the 2 apart. But yes, a definite Pro-Am entry is this Darren Turner Matt Topham car, and Darren Turner on pole position in GT4 for race 2. A quick word about the grids as well, because as is the tradition, all the GT3 cars go ahead of all of the GT4. It doesn't matter what the time is, they are 2 separate elements to the grid. And this was a really quick car on Saturday as well, wasn't it? Richard Williams was mighty in Q1 for the GT4 drivers.
Yes, we've got an Audi on pole in both classes in race 1, and actually I think we've got an Audi second on the grid in both races for the second race, haven't we? Because Stella Motorsport, just as Balf Motorsport did in GT3, have pole position for the first race and second on the GT4 grid behind Newbridge Motorsports Aston Martin for race 2. So the Audi, which had good pace last year, but this one in particular, the GT4 car, was a little bit temperamental at times, and often just when it was on the brink of doing really well, seemed to run into some sort of mechanical malady, which is very un-German of it really, very un-Audi-like. I'm sure Stella Motorsport have been busy working over the winter to make sure that's not an issue, because I think if they can avoid that bad luck, they can be contenders, can't they?
Well, yeah, I mean, that has always been one of the beauties of an Audi, whether it's GT3 or GT4, that it's one of those plug-and-play, almost USB stick-style GT cars. You know, it works straight out of the box. But they seem to have copped for a lot of bad luck last year. This is the new Team Parker Racing, well, I say new last year, Porsche, Nick Jones and Scott Mulvin, but another competitive car, although Nick seemed to struggle a bit in qualifying. So he and Scott Mulvin will start a fair way back on the grid, only 17th. For the first race, but Scott Mulvin has just gone fastest when he broke the beam, 1 minute 34.246. That's quicker than Sean Balfe went in qualifying for race 1. Remember, it's 1 driver, 1 session. Makes a great noise, the Porsche, the 911 GT3R, and Team Parker Racing running cars across GT3 and GT4. But it's interesting, isn't it, that in most cases we're seeing the gun driver, the Pro, being out rather than the AM. You might expect perhaps the AM to do this session because of extra track time. Now have a look at number 22 Audi. This is the car on pole for race 1. Sean Balfe at the wheel. So they push the car backwards, set to go, and Sean Balfe drives, and then it goes back towards the garage. So not quite sure what all that was about, unless he felt that he had an issue and they'd gone to have a look at that. But a bit of head scratching there.
Yes, I say they practice pit stops quite a lot in this warm-up session. Perhaps that's literally what they were doing. Practice the driver change, push the car out, and then, right, exercise over, let's get the car back in the garage, because they don't want to put any more miles on the car than they have to, and it is indeed back in the garage, so we're not going to see it run, I suspect, in the remaining 6.5 minutes. I don't think this is anything to worry about. The team certainly don't look worried. There isn't a great sense of urgency in the garage. I think they're just saving the car, and that is sensible, because imagine if they did send one of the drivers out and they went off or something broke on the car. That could really jeopardise their chance of getting out there to start on pole for race 1, which begins at 20 past 11, so only just over an hour and a half away.
We do have a grid of 30 cars, and quite often the rule is that the smaller the entry, the more you lose.
Yes.
You only lose cars when you've got a small entry. When you've got a big entry, they all hold together. But that's just one of motor racing's strange laws, seemingly. Just under 6 more minutes of this warm-up session to go. Everywhere you look, you find it not only an interesting car, but interesting driver combination as well. Looking at the pit lane, as number 51 Porsche blasts into the pit lane, the Ross Wiley Ben Hetherington Veluga Racing Cayman. Ben Hetherington at the wheel of it, who is, of course, the man behind Veluga Racing. Quick driver himself, but also getting a good team operating. And number 6 Mercedes booms past the pits. That's gone the way of Ian Loggy. And number 91 BMW here didn't make it out for qualifying on Saturday because it was damaged. Angus Fender is at the wheel of the car that he shares with Betty Chen, the Taiwanese driver. Angus Fender, very, very rapid in BMW M6s, whether it's been in real world or sim racing. He was one of the stars of the eSports British GT Championship at the start of last year, but he missed qualifying. Angus Fender, very quick driver, and in his hands, I think that car is going to fly. Betty Chen, with all due respect to her, new to the car, new to Oulton Park, very definitely, pretty steep learning curve.
Yes, but good to have that car running. Again, watching that trackside the other day, it sounds incredible, does the new BMW. And at the moment, in the hands of Angus Fender, as you said, getting a bit racy there with the Paddock Motorsport McLaren. That's another thing we need to get used to saying. Paddock Motorsport McLaren. We've seen them running the Bentley in the past, but running a McLaren in both GT3 and GT4. There is the Paddock Motorsport Bentley, confusingly, in the background. We've got Jamie Caroline here going quickly in the number 15 Mercedes, but last year's blue and orange Bentley from Paddock Motorsport is running, but being driven and run by the SRO Motorsport squad who've been their original car in testing on Friday. So they've luckily been able to borrow the Paddock car, and we'll be racing that throughout the 2 races today. Caroline Quick here. Interested to see, David, how this pairing get on, because Jamie Caroline sharing it with John Ferguson. They worked together in the GT4 Toyota last year. Completely different car, but they seem to have acclimatised well to it.
Yeah, I mean, they only did a couple of races, didn't they, at the end of last season? And Jamie is, as we've seen in the past, very good in GT4 Astons in this country, winning the championship. He drove in the European GT4 series last year in a Mercedes, but now stepping up to the big league, as it were, with the GT3 car. There's the Bentley that you were talking about, number 3. It's Will Tregertha at the wheel of it, the SRO Motorsports run for this weekend car. The Jim Edwards Jr. Simon Traves team, but a borrowed car, as Andy was saying, after theirs was damaged on Friday in testing. Jamie Caroline has now gone quickest on a 1:34.227. We've only got 3 more minutes of the session to go, and the Bentley for the moment looking pretty strong. I mean, that again is a car that has got many a mile of development on it. It's almost now one of the oldest cars on the grid, and assuming development hasn't overtaken it, it should be there or thereabouts. The trouble is, you've got drivers new to it.
Yes, it's a car that's always gone well at Oulton Park as well, but you're right, the drivers, Will Tregertha and Mark Sansom, for Mark, his first season in GT3 machinery, having raced the GT4 Genetic G56 last year, and it was Mark that had that accident in testing at this corner, Island Bend. So let's hope that's not knocked his confidence too much. Adam Ballon in the Barwell Motorsport Lamborghini turns his way through the Shell Hairpin. He's got Team ABBA Racing Mercedes ahead, who got that very popular first win in the championship at Donington last year, and expect to see these 2 cars fighting for race wins as the year goes on. The Barwell car and the Barwell squad, who really do want to try and fight for the championship this season. And Ballon and Mitchell, as you said, into their 2nd season working together now. Ballon getting quicker every year, and Sandy Mitchell a known quantity, so nothing in theory should stop them from being competitive again.
And they've also got that brains trust of Barwell Motorsport, which is particularly important. I would offer you for round 3, next event, Silverstone, 3 hours, where you can play around a bit more with the strategy. And Mark Lemmer and his merry men do know how to use that race and how to haul points, which has a greater offering. But the Barwell team know how to run the car, know what to do on strategy as well. So down towards Lodge Corner comes Adam Ballon. He may well bail for the pits at the end of that, we'll see. Already in the pits, of course, with news, is Bryn Lucas.
Thanks, Alice. Just looking at the red line Lambo coming in, a beautiful looking car. I was just talking to Sean Balfe about what was going on with their strange pit stop, not pit stop, and he said, look, we don't need to risk the car. Every lap round here is a risk, so we went through the process and we were happy just to park it basically for the rest of the sessions. That's it, no news.
So the news is no news, which is good news. Thank you, Bryn. So there is the Balfe Motorsport Audi. That car has become the latest in Sean's many GT cars that he's raced in this championship over the years. I have a horrible feeling, though, that some teams are in strife. Oh no, it's the 91 BMW, and that is a big old whack coming out of Druids, and that's brought out a red flag. And at the wheel of the car was Betty Chen, I'm afraid to say, who'd only really just taken it over. We've got a minute to go. The red flag is out. That'll be the end of the session, because effectively there's less than a lap time in it. But, now the car's sort of driven off the lawn, but has now beached itself in the road. And that car being caught out by right on the exit of Druids, caught out by the slippery grass and fired across the road. Betty Chen has got it off the green bit, but then it's expired in the middle of the road. Anyway, red flag, that'll be the end of the session, as I say. And Betty Chen's weekend, indeed, is not really getting any better.
No, more work for the Century Motorsports squad to do before race 1. It was an important session for Betty, the first Taiwanese driver in British GT, and was hoping to be able to make her debut later on today. We'll wait and see, though, whether that is going to be possible. The marshals pushing the BMW out of the way. I will say that, from my untrained eye, the right-hand side of the car looked remarkably intact, given the whack that it had against the unprotected Armco barriers, so hopefully not too much work for Century to do. But rather proving your point, David, there about the risks associated with going out in that warm-up session.
Well, indeed. I mean, there used to be warm-up sessions in British GT years ago when the entry was a bit smaller, and it got to the point where the race officials sort of dropped them from the timetable, because all it was another opportunity to lose a car that you couldn't really afford to lose. We don't have that problem these days, thankfully, because the championship is in very, very good health. But it's just so disappointing for Century after all the effort they've done over the last day and a half to rebuild that car, and it's got some damage again. But yeah, I hope you're right, in as much as the right-hand side didn't look too badly damaged, but we could have done without that. So at the end of the session, Andy, it is a Bentley, topping the times.
It is, indeed, and whilst it counts for very little, that's still a quick time, actually, a 33.9, so that will give the SRO Motorsports squad quite a bit of confidence, I'd imagine. Second fastest for the number 15 Mercedes, the Ram racing car of Jamie Caroline and John Ferguson, with the Team Parker Racing Porsche of Nick Jones and Scott Walden. Third fastest, Lewis Proctor and Stuart Proctor, father or son and father combo in that order. Fourth fastest, ahead of Ian Loggins, Jorgunon, who have that race 2 pole position later on this afternoon. Cottingham and Williamson's Mercedes 6th, ahead of Malikin and Dorlin 7th. Phil Keane and Michael Igoe 8th fastest, ahead of Ballon and Mitchell, the Barwell Lamborghini, with Chris Froggatt and Kevin Say, who didn't get a chance to mention there, the Sky Tempesta Racing Mercedes, doing the odd round this season, and they were 10th fastest. Graham Davidson subbing this weekend in the number 2 Team Rocket RJM McLaren. Simon Watts is COVID-stricken, so can't race with us here at Oulton. The 76 McLaren of Ewan Hankey and Mia Flewitt, 12th fastest, ahead of the Paddock Motorsport McLaren, the Century BMW that ended the session in the barriers, and then 15th fastest, the quickest of the GT4s, and not the first time that I've said that this weekend. It is the Stella Motorsport Audi R8, which is 15th fastest overall and the fastest GT4 in the session. So, relatively eventful end to the session, but generally speaking, the teams, I think, will be happy to have got through their warm-up programmes in one piece. And first opportunity for many spectators trackside to see the cars out on the circuit in all their glory. Their first race will be coming up, as I said, a little bit later on this morning at 11:20. So they've got just over an hour to get the cars ready for the first of 2 60-minute races. The cars look fantastic, they sound fantastic, the grid is as close as you would like, and I think we're in for not only a fantastic start to the season here at Oulton Park, but perhaps one of the most competitive British GT seasons in quite some time. The 30th season of the Intelligent Money British GT Championship, off to an exciting start here at Oulton Park. Join us in just over an hour's time for race number 1 of the 2022 season.